One church, one school, a community partnership. OCOS. One church, one school, OCOS. One church, one school. For over 25 years. In fact, shortly after the founding of One Church, One School in 1992, Bishop Williamson charged the One Church, One School leaders to create a model for our faith-based school partnerships to celebrate Dr. King's birthday, along with the nation's day of celebration. I'm Dr. Fredonia Johnson, Director for One Church, One School, and our vision in creating the One Church, One School Dr. Martin Luther King Dream Keepers Workshop is for students of all ages to learn who Dr. King was as a preacher, civil rights leader of the nonviolent movement, Nobel Peace Prize winner, and social justice servant leader. Bishop Williamson was very concerned about generations present and in the future, knowing the truth of Dr. King and maintaining the integrity of his life story, nonviolent movement, and civil rights achievements. We were encouraged to read and teach Dr. King's own words, found in the large body of work, including his books and other writings. The One Church, One School Dr. Martin Luther King Dream Keepers model is a comprehensive one designed to address students from levels preschool through adults. The One Church, One School model gives students the opportunity to learn and apply Dr. King's 6 principles of nonviolence and to experience follow-up service learning activities. This model was also designed for replication. We're therefore encouraging every faith-based organization to sponsor a local Dr. Martin Luther King Dream Keepers workshop using the One Church, One School model as a framework, but creating one to meet the needs of the local community. Our children and our world desperately need to incorporate Dr. King's principles of nonviolence into our daily lives, our schools, and our communities. On January 16, 2023, the nation and world celebrates Dr. King's birthday. One Church, One School encourages all to celebrate with substantive, meaningful experiences, acknowledging Dr. King's life, his work, and appreciating that we are the beneficiaries of his legacy. Thank you, and God bless.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am the Reverend Octavius Wilson, the pastor of the Great Israel CME Church in Gary, Indiana, 2301 Washington Street, where it is the church built by faith. We're here today for an interview with 2 special gentlemen as it pertains to our involvement with the One Church, One School program. This program was started by Bishop Henry M. Williamson, you all know, who came out of this church, and we are proud of what he's done, and we're trying our best to continue our efforts to touch the communities, to touch the schools, to assist the school leadership in helping to bring our youth to a bright future. I am now standing as the Vice President of the Gary vicinity. I've been graciously involved and invited in by these 2 gentlemen, and I'm excited about the work that we're going to do in the future. So today we're going to have a brief interview with also one of the founders, one that participated in finding and developing this program, and that is in the person of Elder Correll K. Cargo, who was very instrumental in this community for over 20 years in his ministry. And then to my left, we will be also interviewing Dr. Jerry Protho, who is our Gary Vicinity president of One Church, One School. So we'll start with Elder Cargo. Doctor, how you doing?
I'm doing fine. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. It's always good to see you.
You're looking good.
Oh, thank you, sir. Thank you. I see your eyes are working well.
All right.
Well, Elder Cargo, we just want to ask you a few questions. We understand that you have been around with this program for over 30 years now.
Yes.
You were very involved in the beginning and the startup of One Church, One School. So we just want to ask you a few questions about the history.
Sure.
So as its origin in 1992, what was the purpose of the One Church, One School program?
I think that as a pastor and involved in the community, and with Reverend Henry Williamson, who came out of this church and this community, we always were talking about what should be done. And in talking to other ministers, we discovered some of the same issues that we saw. And we discovered if the One Church, One School would become an organization that reached folks. And I think what helped us to recognize that when Pastor Williamson was appointed to Carter Temple Church in Chicago, he became involved in Operation Push. And as a result of that, his responsibility were to go out into the community to see what was going on as it relates to the churches, school, and the community. And he was surprised to learn for so many problems and issues that was out there. So he came to Gary, Indiana, and had a meeting with Mayor Thomas Bond and the superintendent of the school, and they agreed that he would support them and support the One Church, One School because he needed that. We were able to talk to different ministers and different pastors. Now get this in mind, the key to the success of the One Church, One School is the leadership that comes from all pastors, educators, teachers, and parents. What I love about it, I called my friend who was a pastor of New Revelation Baptist Church. And as a result of that, he said, Carl, you know, I think so much of you. You're welcome to have a meeting here. We had sent notices out to all of the churches in Gary. Could you send some representatives there? And we had a house full of people. And our first president, he was not a minister. He was a lay person, Mr. Broden.
Dr. Cargo, what would you say your role was, the role that you played in the formation of the One Church, One School program on the international level, on the national level?
You know, as praying through everything as I saw that this was a national issue. At one of the meetings of the CME churches, I believe it was held in Cincinnati, Ohio. This was one of our branch meetings. One evening, I went to my room. I drew up a resolution. Now, in that resolution, we pinpointed what I thought that we could do as an organization. And I called one of my spiritual sons, Henry Williamson. He was a pastor of Carter Temple.
Yeah.
What I had done, I said, come to the room. I'd like to read it over and you can have some input with it. He said, why don't we have breakfast together tomorrow morning? So we came to the room. He ordered breakfast for us. We went through it. We made some suggestion adjustment. And the general conference will be coming up in a few months. Mm-hmm. See, the general conference where laws and resolutions are made.
That's right.
So we set up the strategy. Dr. Fredonia Johnson would be the one who would read the resolution at the general conference when they called up on it. And she is also the education director, was involved in the school system in Chicago as an administrator. So as a result of completing that resolution, and we were able to have it ready at the General Conference, it went nationwide.
Let me ask you this question. I know that's how it kind of started in the CME Church, but could you explain the impact of one church, one school in the various communities of faith as it's begun to cross denominational boundaries?
That's an excellent question.
What was the impact that you saw?
I think that people have to know who you are. And what we encouraged was, when you go back home, make sure you touch the pastors in those communities and the educator. We're not just talking about Baptists or CME or Methodist. We're talking about all denominations, even the Muslim, even the Jehovah's Witness, everybody. So as a result, then, that went across the connection, not only our connection, when it hit, they understood it was for all pastors, all schools, all denominations, all faith. So that hit hard. So as a result, we were able to plug into it. And I think that from what I understand, Reverend Prothro, that we are more aggressive and progressive because the contact is started from here.
Yeah.
With the kickoff here, when Reverend Prothro and other Baptists and AMEs and all went to their denomination national meeting, we had leaders there would be pushing it, you see.
Yeah.
And that's how it really spread.
Okay. And last question, Elder. What is your hope for the future of One Church, One School? We've been around 30 years. What do you see for the next 30 years? What would be your desire for this program?
My desire would be this: keep the movement going, keep the foundation relationship going with all denominations, and the leader must be involved with all races of people. See, one of the things what we just recently are doing now, inviting all of the superintendents to come into the body, and as a result of that, we went statewide, district-wide, at our recent meeting on November the 17th, where we have every year, we had invited 7 superintendents coming out of Gary, Maryville, Hobart, Crown Point, East Chicago, Hammond, Indiana, Lake Ridge. We sent letters out to all, and we personally talked to them all. And as a result, that we supported. But what happened on the 17th, we only had 3 superintendents showed up. So we immediately got on top of that. Why didn't you send a representative? We want to know why. And we haven't heard from any of them because I personally talked to them before, and they said, we'll be there. Why?
But it's your desire to just continue building relationships with superintendents, with pastors, and with local leaders to continue on the legacy of One Church, One School.
Because if we don't, Reverend, it's going to die.
Yeah.
Because we have children are failing every day in the school system. And who are they? Where are they?
Yeah.
Do you know every community you drive through, you're going to see 2 things. You're going to see a church and a school. Now, what is the connection going to be between that church and school? What is it for? It's for the children.
Right.
What the church is for the children. What the synagogue is for the children. So we must hit this hard. We must hit it harder and harder. His friend, Bishop Williamson, I was talking to him, you know what, the brother of Brody has done an excellent job, and he decided he wanted to step down. So I said, what recommendation you have? You went with some of these guys at the university over here, Purdue University and all of that. I said, I have somebody I'm thinking about. Then I said, well, who do you have in mind? He had the same person in mind. Proto. Reverend Proto.
Well, that's awesome.
He was just getting started his church.
Yeah.
And I knew that would help that church to grow.
And that's how he became what is now the president of the Gary vicinity of One Church, One School in this city, and we give God the praise for you, Dr. Proto, and for all the work you've been doing for over 20 years now. And we're excited about the future and what you're preparing for the future for those who come after you. So we want to just ask you a few questions. We understand that there is a after-school tutoring program that has been implemented through a partnership with ILPI and One Church, One School. We will have an interview with Dr. Marlon Mitchell, who is the liaison of that program later. But we want to ask you a few questions about this after-school program. So if you first could kind of explain to us what you believe the church's involvement is with this program and how important that is.
Dr. Marlon Mitchell was a part of One Church, One School with us over the last few years. And some of the seminars that we had conducted on leadership, dealing with the P principles that Bishop Williamson had put in place for One Church, One School initiative, he was a part of. And one of the things that we were lacking was everything was volunteer, and we didn't have that funding. Now, he mentioned Dr. Mitchell, who was also a pastor we're talking about from his church, where we had our first meeting, in Hawkins. Let me just add what Cargo was saying, though. What the Gary school system was the first school system that went citywide, meaning that the superintendent, the mayor, they all supported it. So we had their support as well. Now, we didn't come in trying to take the role of an educator. We came in and our set goals were to meet with the principal, find out what their needs are, then go back to the church and see if we could provide some of those resources. All of those people who are tutoring all have license to teach. One of the goals that we set that all the teachers who are doing the tutoring would be teachers with license.
So they're trained teachers.
The biggest two things in a community are the church and the school. And somehow over the years, we've gotten away from that. In fact, those two entities have been attacked. They're saying teachers ain't doing the work and the pastors are staying inside the church, which that's not true at all. All of us know that those are vital for any community to survive. The coronavirus episode revealed a lot of things to us. And for the first time, we found ourselves dealing in the technical world of doing things viral. Not that people wasn't doing it already, but oftentimes you may find our communities behind the eight ball. We should be in front.
Yes.
And so what we were doing with this program was to try to make up for the lack of what they missed out on academically so that they wouldn't be even further behind. And so that's the first initiative that we set out for in this program, is to take those students who were failing, or even absent, to encourage the parents and the ministers to get involved and to make a difference. Now, that would require reconnecting the student and the church together. So what we set aside, we started off, our goal was to have 6 sites for the churches. That after school program, they would come to the churches. So we initially started off with 5, which turned into 3. Three sites that we had.
So we have 3 active sites now.
Yes.
And what was the process of recruiting the participants?
Okay, first initiative, we did a survey of the students that we had in our own congregation. Our goal was to make sure that we had at least 10, that was the minimum. And also any of the teachers who were licensed that wanted to become a part of the program to be the tutors.
From out of the churches. The teachers came out of the churches.
Right, as well as the students. And take the survey. And the survey consisted of some things that they could identify so that we could see whether a child was having issues in. And as we brought on other people into the forum, then we were able to get to the schools to get information on those students. Of course, it was confidential, the information that was shared, so that we could find out what their needs were, and then how we would be able to provide those needs to make a difference academically in their lives.
Okay, so now you mentioned earlier that this was an issue in the past, just having funding to be able to have a program such as this. So by having funding, well, let's first talk about, are the churches compensated? And then if they are, what is the benefit of that?
Okay. What was written also in the grant was because of you using your facility, they compensated them with some of the costs so that they received a check each month, and that would help with your utility costs and the use of the facility.
Okay.
And the snacks were provided from the other agency, because if they coming right after school, they're gonna need something to eat.
Right.
And plus, coming out of school and then getting back into an environment which you just left, there has to be some in-between time where when they first came, we didn't just go right into tutoring.
Okay.
There was a little thing of letting them have some treats, a little fun, and then get back into the curriculum.
So that was provided for each church site
For each
that
site.
was being used?
Yes.
Okay. Well, let's wrap up by asking you this question. How has this program been beneficial to the church and the school partnerships?
Okay. I think it's been beneficial. This is our second year. Because not only the churches, the schools are engaged too, so we're talking about it. I think last year we were over 500 students in all, meaning the church and the school, and I think the numbers are around 1,200 now. And so we're still evaluating and seeing it. We run into a few things that we have to retweak, but it's very exciting. Recently we just had a meeting. In fact, all three of us was there. And what we wanted to do was put everything under one umbrella, which is one church, one school. So we reached out. The superintendents that he was talking about is that they called us, those suburban ones, Hammond, Hobart, Maryville. And we also received information from the church-based, those ministers who were calling out for help.
Yeah.
And so we met recently with the Gary superintendent, or emergency manager. And we brought in some other partners, like the literacy group and a couple of other ones that we brought in. Mental health, things that we could do. Well, they would partner with us as we would meet with later on, and hopefully we're meeting in January to put all these pieces together so that we're touching all the different issues that a child would have. And parents, because we got to have their involvement.
Yes.
and mentoring and things of that nature. So now we have a cross section not only of ministers throughout Northwest Indiana, schools, not just predominantly black schools, but like Dr. Carver mentioned, we got a call from Hobart, we got a call from Maryville. Some of them areas we were getting calls for, they said they need help as well. In a sense, I was glad to hear that, because when you talk about schools in crisis, everybody think it just falls on Gary, Indiana. But we found that not to be true. One of the things that we tell the pastors, we know that they can't get out and do those things themselves, that they would pick a coordinator, and we would train the coordinator so that they can go out, because we still have the separation of church and state. But we're pretty excited about it, because we also asked the emergency manager if they would involve the person over the curriculum for high school, middle school, and elementary school, so that they can bring in things. And how do we make all of this that we're talking about? How do we implement this? What are the things that we're going to do? What goals are we going to set? And how it can help in all those different areas. One of the things, just a couple things very quickly. One, we have a career center. The career center hopefully can even be updated. So that the fact that those things that they did from when we started the Career Center are sort of obsolete. And we got to move with the changes. And so we're setting up the radio and TV. The Gary School System have a radio station and a TV station, cable-wise. And we're saying that we would like to see more student involvement with that. Students actually participating, doing the interview, and doing the news. We don't have a news outlet because we don't have a TV station here. And so one of the things that could be provided for those who are in radio and TV, what an excellent program would it be for them to do news? They could do the news from getting it off of technology, but they would get the experience. And then we want to move from that level and also include our business community. NIPSCO, what are going to be the requirements for the employment of the next century, the century that we're moving into now? and what part of the curriculum do they need to know so that they can come right out of there and go into the workforce.
Yeah.
The same thing with U.S. Steel. You cannot do it without the business community and all those different entities, and that's what we see in the future.
And that culminates the goal of a program like this, just making the connections with the right people,
Right.
so that the future may be better than the past.
Exactly.
Well, this was such a great conversation, gentlemen. I'm honored to be in your presence and honored to follow your leadership, and we look forward to what God is going to do from this point on.
All right.
God bless you.
God bless you.
And God bless you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you
For taking on
for
that
hosting this.
So you said take my place in a few days. Just playing.
Hello, everyone. I am the Reverend Octavius Wilson, the pastor of the Israel Metropolitan CME Church here in Gary, Indiana, 2301 Washington Street, 46407. I'm also standing as the vice president of the One Church, One School Gary chapter, where we are in partnership with the local schools in an attempt to be a blessing to the youth and to the staff and assist them in the goals of creating a successful future for our children. I'm sitting here with Dr. Marlon Mitchell, who is the liaison and the connection for our after-school program. And I'll be doing an interview with him as it pertains to our involvement with this program here at Israel and as well as other churches throughout the Gary vicinity. Good morning, Dr. Mitchell.
Good morning.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. You know, any day that the Lord gives us is a great day to be here.
Amen. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, we just want to ask a few questions about the program and some specifics about the program. I want to first start off by giving everyone the name of the project for the Gary chapter of One Church, One School as it pertains to the after-school program.
Yes, well, first I'd like to begin with the name of our organization is the Institute for Leadership and Performance Improvement. We've been around for about 10 years now, doing quite a bit of work in not only in Gary, but also throughout the country. Really working with children, helping them to achieve success in the classroom and in their careers in college. We've been blessed and fortunate enough to receive a grant in coordination with One Church, One School. And that grant is from the Indiana Department of Education. And it's an iLearn grant. With that iLearn grant, we're able to put resources and wraparound services in the schools to get them to the students as well as the parents to really help them create a platform for success for the youth here. The name of the program is the Accelerated Learning Program, and that program is one that we're extremely proud of. For one thing, it is a coordination between, like I said, the nonprofit sector, the schools, as well as the faith-based community, which One Church, One School is the leader of.
Yes. And you did explain this a little bit, but could you go a little bit more in detail about the goal or the purpose of the project?
Yeah, well, the goals, or our goals and objectives are pretty straightforward. One is the name Accelerated Learning is exactly that. Those children that are behind, we want to accelerate them to get them back on grade level. And that's in the reading, math, arithmetic. We also do STEM and the arts. Those children that are already on target, we want to accelerate them to go beyond what that is. And we do that with our college and career program, where we've seen tremendous success with taking students that are in the middle grades and getting them prepared for college in the 9th grade. And thus far, we've had a number of children graduate with their associate's degrees before they finished high school, before they received their high school diploma.
That's excellent. That's excellent. So the plan is to start them in this program at a younger age and then continue to matriculate with them into the college level and even further on in life.
Exactly, right, because we know that learning is not a one-time shot. Learning takes place over the lifespan. And as long as we're learning, we're living, we're growing, and we're making positive contributions. At least that's what we believe.
Thank you, Dr. Mitchell. Can you identify the participants and their roles in the project?
Yes, we have a number of participants. Of course, One Church, One School, and One Church, One School is made up of quite a few churches here in Gary and the vicinity. We have a number of schools. We have 2 high schools, 2 middle schools. We have 4 elementary schools, 2 charter schools, as well as a couple of churches that we are actually activate the program in. And within that, we're servicing not only the students, but we also service the parents through what we call Parent University. At that Parent University, we provide the parents with skills and tools to help them be able to advocate for their children in school, but also to help them have a better quality of life. So we also do like home buyer education courses in there. We do courses in there about conflict management, conflict resolution, budgeting, finance, and personal finance, various things like that.
And on average, since the program has started, how many students do you think you've worked with through the program? Schools and churches.
Sure. We average about roughly 200 students per school that we serve. And so right now, since we started this program about a year and a half ago, we've serviced well over 800 students.
In just a year and a half.
Just a year and a half. The way that the grant was written, we were supposed to service 250 over a 2-year period, but the need here in Gary is so great, and the people that we have working with us, our staff, which we have 15 teachers, a counselor, social worker, 2 coordinators, as well as a parent liaison and a few other administrative staffers. We just saw that the need was greater. And of course, when God gives you a task and puts something on your heart, He gives you the resources to carry it out. And so we managed to do, with the resources that we had, we managed to expand those resources to service 4 times as many that we were allotted from the state.
Now let's speak to the human resources that you have, the teachers that you mentioned. What's the process of bringing them in, the process of training them, or is there training for the teachers, and how does that work?
Yes, that's an excellent question, right? We want to make sure that, although this is state funding, we live in a society where there's a separation between church and state. But the morality, the character, and all those things, we get that from the church. And so what we decided to do was to source all of our teachers through One Church, One School, through the churches. So all of our teachers are vetted through One Church, One School. That gives us not only, that gives us a couple of things. One, all of our teachers are highly qualified. That means that they are certified in 1 or more subject areas. They all have at least 20 years of experience in the classroom, and they all love the Lord. And with those 3 things, we felt that we had the perfect ingredients to really change lives. And so that's how we source those teachers again. We source them all through One Church, One School, and of course, One Church, One School utilizes their network of churches throughout Gary and the vicinity.
And speak a little bit to the training that you gave these tutors before they came in.
Oh yes, all of our teachers, staff, counselors, social workers, children, because we do a train-the-trainer model. They've all been trained in socio-emotional learning, trauma-informed practice, as well as restorative practices. And then we have another level of training where they're trained to deliver technology support, mostly through gaming and e-learning.
And e-learning, I'm glad you said that, because that's one of the pieces that our children here at the church enjoy the most, that they get to engage on a tablet. So could you talk a little bit about the curriculum, what curriculum you use, and how the tutoring process goes in each organization or each church?
Oh, well, we have an excellent learning management system. We use a system called Be Able. And what Be Able does, it provides us with resources in the arts and humanities. So we do our English, we do our literacy, we do those things through Be Able, and it's it's very interactive and engaging. And when I say that, when the students are on there, I think that they're having so much fun they don't realize that they're learning. And of course, we utilize that, and we have different metrics that we take, and we can measure their growth. And so within a marking period, we see about a grade level growth and when they do that. So you take that we have the children for 4 marking periods. So that means that a child that was performing below grade level, they're going to be on grade level and exceed grade level if they continue with our program and they do it with fidelity. We have another management system called iExcel. And with iExcel, we focus that really on our math and our sciences. And we use that for not only to get students caught up in math and science, and that's kind of a game-like feel also, but we use that for credit recovery. So those students that are in high school that's in our program that may be missing credits, we are able to connect them with iExcel along with the teacher, because again, we don't do any virtual learning where they just go off and do it themselves. We have that teacher there because that teacher is so important when you get stuck or when you have a question, you need your question answered there. And so that really helps us out quite a bit when it comes to credit recovery, because if they're missing credits, we want to make sure that not only does our curriculum meet the state standards, but also they'll be able to get that grade at the end and be able to matriculate through high school and graduate on time.
That's excellent. Well, Dr. Mitchell, it's such a pleasure to talk to you about this. This is so important to our children and to our communities. Any closing comments, any projected goals that you may want to share with us before we go?
Yeah, basically, what we truly believe is that you can't be what you can't see. And I think that that's something that's deficient in our communities. Many times, we as adults, we rise, we grow, we develop, we raise our families, and sometimes we leave our community. And it's the community that we left, it's the community that suffers. So what I would like to just leave with you all is that if you have time, you have talent, you have treasures, that come back home and give just a little bit. And you'll be surprised if everyone gave a little bit, how much that, what we call it, compound. I know in business, we all know about compound interest, but that little time, that little talent, that little treasure, when you come back home, we can compound that and we can have a significant return. And we do that through our mentoring program too, right? We have a very robust mentoring program, and we utilize that to get professionals or folk who have time and talent in the church give them a vehicle in which to give back to the community that we all know and love.
Well, Dr. Mitchell, thank you so much for all that you do. And we're praying for God's success in the future for you.
Well, thank you.
God bless you.
God bless you.
One Church, One School, founded in 1992. We are very thankful for Dr. Fredonia Jones Johnson, Bishop Dr. I. Isom, Reverend Correll K. Carver Sr., as we move forward the CME Church Ministry of Salvation, Education, and Liberation, and One Church, One School, Value Life, Value Learning, calling upon all faith-based organizations to partner with a local school to help students, teachers, and parents to value life and to value learning. We're so thankful as we move into a new year, 2023, for all of the partnerships the last 30 years, and especially Gary and Northwest Indiana, as they've gone citywide, every school, every church, to work with our students, teachers, and parents to make a difference. And even during this pandemic, They have managed to tutor, to provide school supplies, all of those things that are needed for an education and the socio-economic, emotional needs of our students. We must realize that our students, teachers, and parents are the most valuable asset we should invest in. Thank you, One Church, One School. Thank you, Reverend Octavius Wilson. Thank you, Dr. Correll K. Cargill at 92, Reverend Jerry Protho, and certainly all of the leaders of One Church, One School in partnership around the nation. Remember, value life, value learning is the best we can do for our students, teachers, and parents in One Church, One School.